Grounding I-beams and tanks in buildings is crucial for safety. For I-beams, several methods can be used, including clamping, welding, and screwing. Firstly, consider clamping. Install grounding clamps directly onto the I-beam at regular intervals, typically every 50 to 100 feet. Secondly, welding can be employed. Weld grounding studs or plates to the I-beam, ensuring a good electrical connection. Thirdly, screwing is a viable option. Use self-tapping screws designed for grounding purposes to attach grounding conductors to the I-beam. For tanks, consider direct burial grounding rods and grounding grid. Firstly, direct burial involves burying the tank underground, where the surrounding soil provides electrical grounding. Secondly, grounding rods can be used. Drive copper-clad steel ground rods into the ground near the tank. Connect the tank to the ground rods with grounding conductors. Thirdly, a grounding grid can be installed. Install a network of buried copper conductors around the tank, connecting it to the general building grounding system. When checking grounds to building steel, begin with a visual inspection. Look for any signs of grounding connections, such as clamps, studs, or plates. Then perform a continuity test. Use a multimeter to measure the electrical resistance between the building steel and a known ground source, such as a ground rod or water pipe. A resistance of less than 1 ohm indicates a good ground connection. Lastly, consider a ground fault test. Inject a small current into the grounding system and measure the voltage drop. A low voltage drop indicates a proper ground. For flammable liquid storage tanks, it is vital to ground them to prevent static electricity buildup, which can lead to explosions or fires. The grounding system should follow the requirements for the specific type of tank and the type of liquid being stored. In general, the grounding system for a storage tank should include a combination of direct burial, ground rods, and a grounding grid. There are some additional considerations to keep in mind. All grounding connections should be made with approved materials and installed by qualified personnel. Regularly inspect and maintain the grounding system to ensure its integrity. Follow local codes and industry standards for grounding practices. In a 600 amp, 3-phase, 240 volt, 3-wire service, grounding is critical to safety and proper operation. The absence of a visible grounding system in an old plant is a significant concern. Grounding ensures that metallic parts of the electrical system and building structure are at the same electrical potential, minimizing the risk of electric shock and preventing the buildup of static electricity, especially important when dealing with flammable products like alcohol. To establish or verify grounding system, you must connect the building steel, including I-beams and metallic tanks, to a grounding electrode system. This system typically consists of ground rods, grounding plates, or connection to the building's metallic water pipe, if it qualifies as a grounding electrode. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, Article 250 provides detailed requirements for grounding and bonding. Start by visually inspecting the main service entrance for the grounding electrode conductor, which should connect the neutral conductor of the 240 volt service to a grounding electrode. This conductor is typically made of copper or aluminum and must be sized according to NEC Table 250.66 based on the size of the service entrance conductors. If you do not find a grounding electrode conductor, one must be installed. Common grounding electrodes include ground rods, which are typically 8 feet long and made of copper or copper-clad steel. They should be driven into the earth to their full length and spaced at least 6 feet apart. Alternatively, a grounding plate can be buried below the frost line. Another option, if available, is to use the building's metallic water pipe as a grounding electrode, but this must be supplemented by an additional electrode like a ground rod or plate. Once you have established a grounding electrode system, you need to bond the building steel and metallic tanks to it. Bonding ensures that all metallic parts are electrically connected and at the same potential. For I-beams, you can use listed grounding clamps to attach grounding conductors to the steel. These clamps should be installed at regular intervals, such as every 50 to 100 feet, to ensure adequate grounding throughout the building. The grounding conductors should be sized according to NEC Table 250.122 based on the size of the circuit conductors feeding equipment connected to the I-beams. For metallic tanks, especially those containing flammable liquids, grounding is essential to prevent static electricity buildup. The tank should be directly bonded to the grounding electrode system using grounding conductors sized according to NEC Table 250.122. In addition to direct bonding, it is also recommended to ground the tank to multiple ground rods or a grounding grid to provide a low impedance path to ground. The grounding grid consists of a network of buried copper conductors that surround the tank and are connected to the grounding electrode system. To verify the effectiveness of the grounding system, perform a ground impedance test. This test measures the resistance between the building steel and the grounding electrode system. The resistance should be as low as possible, ideally less than 1 ohm, as required by the NEC. A high resistance indicates a poor connection or inadequate grounding electrode system. You can also perform a continuity test using a multimeter to check the bonding connections between the I-beams, tanks, and grounding electrode system. Ensure that all connections are tight and free of corrosion. It is crucial to document all grounding and bonding connections, including the size and type of conductors, the location of grounding electrodes, and the results of ground impedance tests. This documentation will be helpful for future inspections and maintenance. Given the age of the plant and the absence of a visible grounding system, it is recommended to consult with a qualified electrical engineer or contractor to assess the existing electrical system and design a comprehensive grounding and bonding plan that meets the requirements of the NEC and other applicable codes and standards. They can perform detailed inspections, conduct necessary tests, and provide recommendations for upgrading the grounding system to ensure the safety of personnel and equipment. Remember, grounding is not just about preventing electric shock, it also plays a critical role in protecting sensitive electronic equipment from damage caused by voltage surges and electrical noise. A properly designed and installed grounding system will help to ensure the reliable and safe operation of the electrical system in the building. Grounding electrode conductors and bonding jumpers are crucial components of a robust grounding system. The grounding electrode conductor connects the system's grounded conductor, typically the neutral, to the grounding electrode. This connection establishes a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source, facilitating the operation of other current protective devices like circuit breakers and fuses. Bonding jumpers, on the other hand, connect non-current carrying metallic parts of the electrical system, such as equipment enclosures, metal conduits, and building steel, to the grounding electrode system. This ensures that all these parts are at the same electrical potential, minimizing the risk of electric shock. The size of the grounding electrode conductor is determined by NEC Table 250.66, which is based on the size of the service entrance conductors. The larger the service entrance conductors, the larger the grounding electrode conductor must be. For example, if the service entrance conductors are 500 kc mil copper, the grounding electrode conductor must be at least 1/0 AWG copper. The size of bonding jumpers is determined by NEC Table 250.102, which is based on the size of the circuit conductors. Again, the larger the circuit conductors, the larger the bonding jumpers must be. For example, if the circuit conductors are 200 amps, the bonding jumpers must be at least 6 AWG copper. Grounding electrodes themselves come in various forms, including ground rods, ground plates, and metal water pipes. Ground rods are typically 8 feet long and made of copper or copper-clad steel. They must be driven into the earth to their full length and spaced at least 6 feet apart. Ground plates are typically 2 feet by 2 feet and made of copper or galvanized steel. They must be buried at least 30 inches below the surface of the earth. Metal water pipes can be used as grounding electrodes if they are in direct contact with the earth for at least 10 feet and are electrically continuous. However, metal water pipes must be supplemented by an additional grounding electrode, such as a ground rod or ground plate. The location of grounding electrodes is also important. They should be located as close as practicable to the service entrance and should be protected from physical damage. They should also be accessible for inspection and testing. Proper installation techniques are essential for ensuring the effectiveness of the grounding system. Grounding electrode conductors and bonding jumpers must be securely connected to the grounding electrodes and equipment enclosures using listed connectors. Connections must be tight and free of corrosion. Ground rods must be driven straight into the earth and must not be bent or damaged. Ground plates must be buried flat and must be in direct contact with the earth. Regular inspection and testing of the grounding system are also important. The grounding system should be visually inspected at least annually to ensure that all connections are tight and free of corrosion. Ground impedance testing should be performed every few years to verify that the grounding system is still effective. Ground impedance testing measures the resistance of the grounding path and should be performed using a ground impedance tester. If the ground impedance is too high, the grounding system must be repaired or upgraded. Common grounding mistakes to avoid include using undersized grounding conductors, making improper connections, failing to protect grounding electrodes from physical damage, and neglecting to inspect and test the grounding system regularly. It is crucial to follow the requirements of the NEC and other applicable codes and standards when designing, installing, and maintaining a grounding system. A properly designed and installed grounding system is essential for the safety of personnel and the protection of equipment.